We have successfully developed 2 breeding lines that will not have quantifiable quantities of THC and CBD. In fact, our third-party certificate of analysis indicate values of less than LOQ or non-detected.
That's Luis Monserrate, PhD student in Larry Smart's hemp breeding lab at Cornell Agritech. This is the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. My name is Eric Herlock. Today's show is part 3 of my Cornell Agritech trilogy. On part 1, we attended the Fiber and Grain Field Day. On part 2, we spent time with Christine and Larry Smart, who respectively are the director of Cornell Agritech and the head of the hemp program at Cornell. Today, part 3, we will hear my conversations with Jane Hamilton, a PhD student in Christine Smart's plant pathology lab, where she is researching UV light as a way to combat powdery mildew in hemp. And then we will hear my conversation with Luis Monserrate about his work in Larry Smart's hemp breeding program, where they are working on some game-changing genetics for the fiber and grain space. All that and more, plus a big sticky nugget of hemp news from Hemp Today, right after these messages. This week's show is brought to you by Hemi and the Goodness of Hemp campaign. Hemi stands for the Hemp Education and Marketing Initiative. Hemi's mission is to accelerate the growth of the industry through leadership and market awareness of hemp products and solutions. Hemi is fostering new business opportunities through innovation, best practices, and partnerships that benefit U.S. farmers and processors. The Goodness of Hemp campaign shares the virtues of hemp with policymakers, manufacturers, and consumers. Find out what the goodness of hemp can do for your business at hempinitiatives.org. Today's show is also made possible with support from Forever Green, distributors of the KP4 hemp cutter, which introduces a revolution in hemp harvesting. It sets a new standard for harvesting quality, speed, and efficiency. The KP4 prepares hemp for ideal retting and easy on-field tedding, raking, and baling. It's easy to maintain and designed to withstand the punishments of hemp harvesting. The KP4 hemp cutter, available only at hempcutter.com. All right, welcome back. So we've just got one big sticky nugget of hemp news this week. It comes to us from hemptoday.net. So the headline reads, "Flawed data in USDA hemp reports is warping policy, investment, and market signals." It's written by Brad Truman. He's an analyst from Canna Markets Group. And Truman digs deep into the USDA's National Weekly Hemp Report. That's the official document meant to track hemp prices and imports here in the U.S. So now, you'd think this would be a pretty simple data set. Truman points out it's just 9 columns, about 100 rows per week. But once he loaded the PDFs of these reports into a database and started running queries, the cracks showed pretty fast. Within a few hours, he was spotting broken formulas, sloppy naming conventions, unexplained jumps in year-to-date numbers, and even the occasional country swamp. Yeah. Take June 19th, 2024. Australia suddenly became Austria in the hemp twine section, with no change to the totals. That mistake carried through for the rest of the year. Or on September 11th, 2024, when the Netherlands vanished entirely, throwing off totals across 4 other countries, before quietly reappearing the next week with no explanation. And the big one, April 17th, year-to-date values jumped without reason, bore no relation to the weekly values, and then reverted the following week as if April 17th had never happened. Truman argues these aren't just minor typos. They point to weak data hygiene and zero public accountability. USDA often doesn't respond when stakeholders point out errors. Cornell University, which archives the reports, told Truman that they can't verify corrections. They just store what the USDA sends. In his words, that's not oversight, that's passing the buck. So why does this matter? Because, as Truman puts it, garbage in, garbage out. Investors, policymakers, and business leaders are basing million-dollar decisions on these reports. Bad data means bad decisions, and in a young industry like hemp, that can warp policy and investment for years. The fixes aren't complicated. Truman calls for basic validation checks to catch obvious errors before publication, consistent naming for countries, a public change log so corrections are transparent, and a real response when stakeholders raise concerns. Hemp doesn't need perfect precision, he writes, but it does need data that's at least trying harder than this. So if the USDA wants to be a trusted partner in hemp's future, it starts with one simple thing. Get the data right. Okay, next up, we're going to take a little tour with Jane Hamilton. She's a plant pathology PhD candidate in Christine Smart's lab. But before we do, I just wanted to remind you that this weekend is the 13th annual International Hemp Building Symposium. It's hosted for the first time in the U.S. this year, so I'm headed out to Minnesota to the Lower Sioux Indian community where Danny Desjarlais and the crew are hosting the event. It's going to be great. You can assume, I think, safely that next week's show will be about my time in Minnesota, but we'll see what happens. All right, let's go talk to Jane Hamilton and learn about powdery mildew.
My name is Jane Hamilton. I'm a PhD student in Chris Smart's lab in Geneva at Cornell Agritech, studying powdery mildew of hemp.
All right, and tell me what room we're in here?
We are in one of our greenhouses in Barton Laboratory, which contains all of our hemp going on.
So you're studying powdery mildew, and talk about the implications that your work will hopefully have for agriculture.
Well, I think anyone who grows cannabis is familiar with powdery mildew. It can be a tricky problem to solve, and there's sort of limited options out there.
Just in case you're not too familiar with powdery mildew, here's what you need to know. It's a fungal disease that shows up like a white dusting on the leaves. It's not just a hemp problem. It attacks cucumbers, grapes, zinnias, pumpkins, you name it. The tricky part is it's an obligate biotroph, which means it can't live without a host plant. That makes it hard for researchers to study in the lab. Right now, control options are limited to cultural practices like pruning for airflow, sulfur sprays, and a handful of fungicides, none of which are perfect solutions for hemp.
And I'm looking to provide an alternative strategy for control, which would be UV light, UVC specifically. So the goal is to treat living plants with UVC in small doses and basically cleanse the leaf of powdery.
Wow. And so how far along in the research are you on that?
Well, right now I'm kind of determining the rates that the plant can handle it. So I've treated plants with super high doses. We're talking 8,000 joules of UVC to see what that limit is for the plants and what the photo damage really looks like, because I didn't know what I was looking for. So I've been measuring that and trying to determine that safe rate where we can use UVC to kill the pathogen, not the plant.
UVC is the shortest wavelength of ultraviolet light. It's the part that never makes it through Earth's atmosphere. It's powerful enough to scramble DNA and kill microbes, and it can also be damaging to living tissue. You have to sort of find that sweet spot between what the plant can handle and what is bad for the pathogen?
Yes, that's exactly right.
And so describe what that looks like.
Right now, with my experiments, think of a file cabinet that has the top cut off and has a light put in. And right now, I just take trays of young plants, about 2 weeks old, and I treat them once a week. And then I take them out and see what happens. Cool. Yeah.
All right. Is that filing cabinet here on this site?
Yeah, it is. I'll show you it if you'd like.
Let's lead the way. All right.
Might take a second to warm up.
Jane, where are we now?
We are in the UV room, which is basically a small broom closet with a file cabinet looking contraption. And it's basically operated with a pneumatic shutter. So you're about to hear me open the shutter. And inside that file cabinet, the UV light is on. So when I'm ready to take out my plants, I can close the shutter and safely treat my plants with UVC.
All right, and you're hoping that that will kill pathogens, but not the plant.
Yeah, so again, like I've been working on finding that safe dose for the plant and basically just zapping it with everything I've got to see how the plant does. But soon we'll move on to testing the pathogen.
So if this works, right, and it does what you want it to do, how do you then turn it into something that farmers can use?
Well, it's actually been implemented in other cropping systems. Carrot Cox at Cornell Agritech has done some really nice work with his former student, Isabella Yanuzzi. And they were actually driving this tractor with a UV attachment on the back over crops. So if you want to look at that, you should look up Isabella Yanuzzi and Carrick's work.
Just a quick side note, I put a link to Carrick Cox's and Isabella Yanuzzi's work on the show page for this episode. It's an overview of their work with UV light fighting fire blight and apple blossoms without antibiotics. There's a cool video of, the UV trailer moving through the orchard at night. It's super cool. All right, check that out. Back to Jane.
But yeah, it can be used in field applications for various pathosystems. And then in a greenhouse, you could have a system set up with lights overhead, and you'd be able to adjust the height of those lights depending on how tall the crop gets.
Okay. Anything you want to say about power requirements or electricity or the lights you're using, anything like that?
Well, I think as far as implementing this system into your own setup, there definitely would be a cost at the beginning up front, but it's actually pretty inexpensive to run in comparison to fungicides. So I think it's a very attainable system to use.
So mildew, powdery, and what's the other one?
Downy?
Downy. They're fungus.
Yeah, they're fungi. So that's probably the biggest issue among many crops is fungal pathogens. Okay. And they can be quite tricky. And UV, it sounds great for all fungi, but unfortunately some of them are melanized, which means they have melanin just like our skin. So with those types of fungi, this setup won't really work. Yeah.
Just to explain that a little more. So some fungi have melanin, just like our skin, which blocks UV light and makes them harder to kill. Powdery mildew does not have that defense, which is why UVC shows promise here. But for other fungal pathogens, growers still rely on other methods to keep them in check. All right, so you're sort of at the beginning of your PhD program here, and you'll be here for a few years. What other sort of things do you hope to get into?
Well, I'm actually really interested in using UVC for post-harvest treatment. I know that's a big concern among growers who, for high CBD cannabis, that they have to get testing done before they can sell their product. And that testing is basically a microbial count. That's just all living things. And it's pretty difficult to get nothing, sterile cannabis. So I think there's a lot of hope for using UVC for post-harvest treatment. And then I want to get further into the pathogen itself and explore population diversity. We really know nothing about the pathogen in terms of its genome. So hopefully we can uncover that and then explore the different diverse isolates in North America and see what we've got going on.
That's cool. That's really exciting. You want to show me more things?
Sure.
Okay.
Let me turn this off.
It's a good sound.
So the light's up there.
I'm going to shoot a video.
Okay.
So this is the cabinet.
Yes,
Okay.
this is the UV cabinet. This is the UV cabinet, and how it works is the bulb is up there. There's a shutter that operates with a pneumatic pump, so you're able to safely put things in and take them out without getting burned yourself. And dose is a function of distance from the bulb as well as time in the chamber. So you're able to move these shelves up and down depending on how high you want to get from the bulb.
Right. Cool.
And yeah, that's how it works. Something I guess I didn't explain, like biologically, is that we have different DNA repair mechanisms when it comes to UV damage than plants and microbes.
Oh, okay. Like we as mammals.
As mammals, yeah. So there's enzymes in microbes and plants that are light activated. So after I treat with UV, I have to cover the plants up in the dark and the microbes.
Like to shut them off almost?
Yeah, so you can treat the microbe without doing that, without the dark incubation. But you can actually reduce the dose needed in half by inhibiting its ability to repair itself. So these repair enzymes take visible light to shoot an electron between these DNA dimers. And if you put them in the dark, they lose that ability.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why do we even know that? That's amazing.
I know, it's amazing. Those enzymes are really interesting. There are only 2 classes of enzymes that use visible light.
That's so cool.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
Humans lost that ability though because we use like basic excision repair instead.
Very interesting. Do you want to show me anything else, or are we good?
The powdery chamber.
Okay.
It's quite loud in here, so not very good for recording. This is our growth chamber, which contains our isolate of powdery mildew.
Oh.
So here are some plants that are covered. So Chris Smart has been keeping these plants infected for many years.
These same exact plants?
No, so how this works is we have an infected plant in here, and eventually the powdery will get so severe that the plant will just collapse.
So you just keep putting new plants in to maintain the culture of...
So the method of inoculating a new plant is you just basically rub the plant all over the leaves and then pop it in there and leave it. And within like 7 to 10 days, you'll get an infected plant.
All right.
A symptomatic plant, that is.
Can these light units, could you put your UV stuff in there and use these as the cabinets?
I'm not sure. Chris and I are actually still trying to figure out how I'm going to do my greenhouse experiments. We got in contact with a company that sells UV lights, and they basically just ghosted us. We never heard back from them again. So we're like, well, okay, we got to find something else.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we're going to do it yet.
All right, Jane, where are we now?
We are in one of the labs that we have here at Cornell Agritech, and we are at my bench right now. This is where my experiments have been going on as far as the pathogen side of things.
All right, well, walk me through the bench. I've never seen a plant pathology bench before, so what do you got here?
Well, I've got my pipettes.
Your what?
My pipettes. These are the things that we use to take specific volumes of liquid from one tube and move them to another tube.
Like a fancy eyedropper?
Basically, a very, very expensive eyedropper.
Okay, tell me more.
I also have some cards. They're called FTA cards. And these are what I use to try to extract DNA from a pathogen that is an obligate biotroph. One of the challenges of powdery mildew is that it requires a living host to survive. So that makes my job hard because I can't put it on a plate and grow it and keep it for, a number of days. But yeah, I basically smash an infected leaf on the card, and it's a very special card that will hold the DNA in its matrix. So I've been trying to figure out a way to effectively get DNA from that.
I don't see any microscopes here. Do you not use microscopes? Oh, over there. Okay.
Microscopes over here. There's a dissecting scope and then a couple of microscopes where we can take a closer look at things.
Okay, but they're not on your desk. They're someone else's desk.
No, yeah, they're just for everyone in the lab to use.
Okay. Tell me more about your desk here. I see you've got some Sharpies in a wide range of colors.
Yes, I love labeling things in colors and color coding things. So Sharpies are very essential in the lab. I've just got some various reagents up here, some ethanol for cleaning, and some tips for my pipettes.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much for the tour of everything. It's great to meet you, and thank you.
Thank you.
I will have the pictures I took on the show page for this episode so you can see Jane's UV light cabinet and the powdery mildew collection and the lab. So I'll have all of that stuff at lancasterfarming.com. Maybe you've noticed that I really like plants and I'm fascinated by plants, and I just don't know a lot about science, but it fills me with wonder and awe. And I feel like in some parallel universe, I'm a plant scientist. Maybe, I don't know. But in this universe, I'm a dreamer who really enjoys talking to people. So thank you to Jane. And now let's go talk to Luis Monserrate, who did compliment me on my ability to roll my R's. And I can hear you all rolling your eyes. Anyway, here we go. Let's talk to Luis. Luis Monserrate, welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me, Eric.
Yeah, could you introduce yourself for me?
Yeah, my name is Luis Monserrate. I'm a fifth-year PhD student in Larry Smart's lab at Cornell University, stationed in Geneva, New York, Cornell Agritech specifically. Yeah.
And you're working in Larry Smart's lab, all right?
That's correct. Yep.
And you'll graduate soonish with a PhD, yeah?
Yep. If all goes well, analysis and all, and writing and all, by next year I should have a doctorate.
Okay. And so is your research complete and now you have to just start writing, or what happens now?
Yeah, now is the most tedious part of it. The data analysis and the writing. Yep.
All right. Well, tell me about, your research and what you've been studying and what we all can learn from what you're doing.
Yeah, so as you know, there are three market classes of hemp: fiber, grain, and high cannabinoid. So my research mainly focuses on fiber and grain. And I do genetic analysis of the genetic mechanisms underlying agronomic traits, such as flowering time, seed size, yield, overall yield, and also cultivar development. As you saw yesterday in our field day, I showed most of our cultivars, well, actually all of our cultivars, and the yields that we have put together, analyzing it over several years, several planting days, several locations. We have done that too. They were not shown yesterday, but they were on a handout, so you can access to. So, yeah.
And so you've been kind of instrumental in the varieties Ursa Grande and Ursa Alta. Do I have those names right?
Yeah, you got it right. Yeah, I've done my part in contributing to the development of these cultivars. Their eligibility for certification with the EOSCA application, as well as the PVP application that we have. We have PVP for Ursa Alta and Ursa Grande already.
I guess you said a bunch of things I don't understand with the acronyms and things. I don't understand what it means, but tell me some more about it. Dig in on that.
Yeah, so EOSCA is the Association of Official Seed Certifying Agencies. Okay. So this entity allow us to submit a form in which we can, in detail, describe the pedigree of our cultivar, as well as the morphometric measurements that makes our cultivar unique or distinct than other ones. And they will eventually, once we submit the application, they ultimately review it among a panel, and they determine whether it is, we have provided sufficient evidence to make it distinguishable from other cultivars, very distinct. So as you know, probably there are three parameters that makes a cultivar. They have to be distinct, they have to be uniform, and they have to be stable. So that's what we try to show with data and with this application. All
right, well, tell me what sets these two varieties apart then.
Yeah, Ursa Alta makes it distinct than other cultivars that are high yielding that you have seen before by its THC compliance. So we can reliably say that you or any grower that will use our seeds will not have, or will have a minimal risk of exceeding the THC limit that has been determined for hemp.
Yeah. And how does that sort of work with, like, let's say, there's a target for hemp grain that it has to meet a certain threshold for THC and CBD in the cleaning. Can you talk about how these new varieties might sort of play with those feed rules?
You're referring to the hempseed meal definition? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for that, we have a different type of cultivar lines that we're working on. But with Orso Grande, what we're trying to do essentially is to ensure superior performance and ensure high yield, which we get. We are able to get in our analysis, in our measurements and field experiments that we have gotten up to probably more than 2,000 pounds per acre of grain.
That's a game changer because what's the average now, like 800 to 1,000 pounds of grain?
The last that I got from the last NAS report that we got from the USDA was about 700 and something pounds per acre of grain, at least what they disclosed.
Now, are you getting those numbers because you're growing a smaller plot and then you just sort of extrapolate what you get from an acre?
Sounds like you attended our talks yesterday on the field day. Yeah, so one thing is when you do a small plot trials, you assess multiple cultivars. It's very convenient to have a small plot because you can compare them side by side. You get to expose them to, relatively speaking, a similar environment, and they are replicated, so you get to have the statistical power that you want, right? But to have the statistical power, you need to reduce your incremental unit size. And yes, this is from small plot trials, so the yield tends to be more manicured, how I like to say it, because you get to get the best part of the field, and when you are sampling, or at least selecting the area, it tends to be the most representative area. When you are harvesting a large scale, you account for much more field variability, for a very variable plant density that you sometimes cannot establish in a large field due to irregularities on the field. You may have flooding, you may have improper placement of the seed in the soil, and so forth. So when you're harvesting, then you're accounting for all this variability. So it can be extrapolated proportionally, and that's what I showed yesterday, that even though it wasn't exactly the same yield, it was proportionally superior, like the same difference between our cultivars and the commercial check. Okay.
So did you come to Cornell because you wanted to study hemp with Larry Smart, or did you come to study plant genetics, or how did you get to hemp, I guess is the question.
Ooh, that's a long story to tell. Yeah, so I did my master's in hemp. I work on under the supervision of Dr. Zach Brim. And
is that at Cornell?
No, that was the University of Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, and I did agronomy there. When I was working with him and his team, I knew he was some sort of a project with Larry Smart at that point, and coincidentally, I was also reading papers on genetics and breeding because that was always my passion. I needed to have the agronomy background to be in depth in plant breeding and genetics. So when I was reading papers, one of the most known and popular papers at that time was when Larry's lab, when at that point it was Larry's lab to me, not my lab.
It's your lab now.
But it's my lab now. Yeah. They developed markers that allow the distinction of chemotype 1, chemotype 2, and chemotype 3. So those molecular markers were published in that paper, and that paper was cited a lot. So I read that paper and like, oh, it's from Cornell, from Larry Smart's lab. So then I reached out to Larry and said, hey, can I help with anything here in Miami, Florida, with your cultivar? And at that point, they were trying to do scale up, so in greenhouses or in field conditions at that point. And once I finished my master's, I realized, I do like breeding and genetics, and I already have a lot of foundational knowledge of hemp and where is the best hemp breeding program in the US, and that's Larry's. Mm-hmm. So I applied to Larry's program, and thankfully he considered me worthy enough to be in his lab. Yeah.
So you'll graduate next year, if all goes well, with your PhD. What's the official thing that you graduate in, a PhD in?
Yeah, it's a PhD in plant breeding and genetics.
Okay. So what happens next for you? Do you try to stay at Cornell, or do you go on to industry, or what's the future look like for Luis?
Yeah, so it is a very tricky question to answer because after I finish my PhD, there will be other projects that I would like to finish, or projects that I find interesting that I would like to pursue. So Larry has given me the opportunity to hopefully stay as a postdoc. So that would be great. So I can wrap up some papers, probably add more papers to my CV. And after that, I would love to work in the industry. I would like to keep doing more breeding, more specifically hemp breeding, since I learned so much and I work so much with hemp-related people. So, and I think it's a very it's starting to bloom industry to me. Yeah. And yeah, I would like to help the growers with different cultivars for their needs, different yield potentials that they can achieve while maintaining compliance. I would like to put my part in the evolution of the hemp industry.
Yeah. Looking at the hemp industry from your perspective, where are some of the holes? Like where do we still need research, or what else needs to happen from your point of view before this industry is, firing on all 8 cylinders or however many cylinders hemp has?
Well, so I don't know if you stay for the whole part of the field. I couldn't see you because I was in the front rows of the auditorium.
I was at the decorticator at the end.
Okay, so you went to the whole. Okay, perfect. So in the morning, there was a lot of research detailing the importance of grain in animal feed for different animals. So they mentioned laying hens, broilers, horses, cattle, ruminants in general. So it was fantastic, and I feel like the importance of hemp seed or hemp grain, how you want to call it, as an ingredient in the animal feedstock is essential, and how safe it is for the animal, how they're performing. One of the amazing things that I saw yesterday was the decrease of the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio from 20 to about 8 in the eggs from laying hens, in incorporating hemp as hemp seed cake in the diet of these laying hens. So research like that, validating the importance of hemp, is crucial, so that won't be a question by processors. There won't be a question from growers. There will be a question from legislators that this is a safe. So we have to make this crop a standard as any other row crop that we have.
Regulation. That's the sticky point, right?
Yeah, but to have regulation, you have to show that it's safe. So like having the science out there to prove that, to prove to the legislators that it's a safe crop and it's a very promising crop, is important for the industry. Without that, you can't prove legislation that this is worth of moving forward.
It's frustrating because it seems like there's a lot of miseducation out there, misinformation, and still a lot of sort of misguided fear about the plant and, THC and, the plants Larry showed me this morning, he said they're high in CBG and they don't have any like CBD or THC, which is pretty groundbreaking.
So I'm glad that you're bringing that up, because that was earlier in the conversation. You mentioned about like ensuring that low CBD and low THC in our seed meal. Well, by definition, a hemp seed meal has to meet very low quantities of CBD and THC, namely 20 parts per million of CBD and 2 parts per million of THC, if I'm not mistaken. So what we have to do for that is to develop a cultivar that will have the minimal quantification of these cannabinoids. And we have successfully developed 2 breeding lines that, thankfully, through the integration of a locus that does not have those genes that code for those enzymes, your seed, the inflorescence in general, will not have quantifiable quantities of THC and CBD. In fact, our third-party certificate of analysis indicate values of less than LOQ or non-detected.
Wow.
So if you are using these seeds, when you're threshing this, you're mixing inflorescences with the seeds, and so the seeds get coated with the trichome material. And in a non-chemotype 4, these seeds could potentially exceed that limit of 20 parts per million of CBD and 2 ppms of THC. But these cultivars will not have that problem, because even in inflorescence alone, you won't have that concentration. And sorry, I mentioned chemotype 4 really quickly. Chemotype 4 would be what I explained earlier, that there's only high CBG, there is not THC or CBD, or in this case, very low quantities. And the predominant cannabinoid is CBG. That's what Larry was referring to, high CBG.
Talk a bit about seed size. Big seeds versus small seeds, and sort of, are you looking into that? Are there implications for different industries for seed size?
Yes. I personally like big seeds. I know
You cannot lie. Sorry.
Yeah. So in commercial cultivars, the seed size of hemp is about maybe 12, 15 grams per thousand seed weight. Ursa Grande has about 22 to 24 grams per thousand seed weight. I personally have a line that was able to produce 60 grams thousand seed weight.
That's a big seed.
That is a big seed. So we use that for my population to identify what happens, genetically speaking, with those seeds. But I think that overall these seeds are important for crop establishment. Anecdotally, because we have to do more research on this, we're starting to do it, but we haven't finished it. I believe that a larger seed, I'm not saying 60 grams, but a larger seed than normal, perhaps has a better seedling vigor when establishment. And these big seeds tend to have big leaves when they are seedlings. And they, again, anecdotally, I have seen in the field that they reach this canopy closure much earlier than a small seeded. So
weed control at that point.
exactly, that was my next point. At that point, you are controlling for weeds, and you're able to establish a crop much more uniformly. So one counter argument that I hear about big seeds is that you have less seeds in a bag that you sell, right? But my argument is that you perhaps don't need to seed that much when you have larger seeds because you have a much better established crop, assuming that germination is pristine, right? So I think that's important. And then for the processing side, I was talking with Jamie Hunter from Verve Seeds, and he was mentioning to me that perhaps we cannot go too low in the seed size, perhaps not too big, but there's a nice point in which allows for a proper cleaning of the seeds because then you have the proper equipment for it. If you have too small, they will fall through. If you have too big, they might not be able to get cleaned properly. I don't understand quite well how the whole seed cleaning process takes place, but that's what he was telling me, like overall. So,
how important is imagination in your work?
Very important. I think you need to be very imaginative. Is the word?
Imaginative.
Yeah. Creative. Absolutely. In plant breeding, I remember that when I learned about plant breeding, it was called a science and an art. So yes, definitely. If you can imagine multiple things, and if those multiple things are in germplasm, that you can look at a whole diversity of lines, accessions, plants that are not really cultivars, and those traits that you would like to have in your ideal cultivar exist. You can use that imagination that you have to slowly introgress those traits. We have a term, perhaps Larry mentioned it to you, called idiotype.
I remember the idiotype.
Yeah. So that's our goal. We set up an idiotype, and our imagination allows us to do that. Obviously, we have to imagine with potential, with an existing germplasm, with what we can do. Perhaps you can imagine with other mechanisms like genetic transformation or gene editing. In our case, I personally am not doing that. In my lab, we have lab mates that do work on genetic transformation. But in my work, I'm trying to do natural breeding. So following that idiotype, we decided these standards, and with that we determine, okay, based on the market, based on the grower, based on the industry in general, or the processors, this is what we believe is the best, and we need to achieve that. Right. So our imagination allows us to get to that point little by little with effort and all that.
Right. Can you, I don't know, do you have an example of something that just absolutely surprised you, like in your work with the hemp plant? You know, maybe results that you got, or just the plant acted in a certain way. Is there any anecdote you can tell about the surprising nature of your intersection with the plant?
Well, the seed side was very surprising to me. Yeah. 60 grams was crazy. I didn't think I was going to see that.
That's like a snack food at that
Exactly. And that's how I envisioned that people will probably eat hemp in the future as just snacking.
Did I see you in the field yesterday just eating hemp seeds?
Absolutely, yeah. I was that we don't spray any insecticides on our fields, so it's safe to eat them. And when I'm about to harvest and those seeds are ready to go, I will eat them. I eat hemp seeds all the time, like every single day. I eat hemp hearts with my yogurt. So yeah.
That explains your healthy glow, I think.
Well, you can say that.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. It's great to. I love being here at the Geneva Agritech campus. Cornell is an amazing place, and I am blown away by the hospitality that everyone has offered here. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming here. Thank you for the opportunity to be interviewed by you. And I hope you like the Finger Lakes. It's a lovely area before it gets too cold in here.
All right, there you go. Luis Monserrate from Cornell Agritech. And before we go, we've got a piece of late-breaking hemp news. Yeah, a news nugget late in the show. What do we got here? American President Donald Trump shared a video this week from the Commonwealth Project calling for Medicare coverage of hemp-derived CBD. The video argues CBD could cut reliance on opioids, save billions in healthcare costs, and improve seniors' quality of life by strengthening the body's endocannabinoid system. About 20% of older adults already use CBD, but without FDA regulation, most doctors can't guide patients. Trump's post suggests he sees cannabis as having medical value, and it comes just weeks after he said his administration would decide on rescheduling cannabis to Schedule 3. We'll keep an eye on this story as it develops, but they should not reschedule it to 3. They should unschedule it. All right. But I digress. All right, so that does it for me today. That does it for our Cornell trilogy. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your patience with me. Like I said earlier in the show, I am headed to Minnesota from here, going to cover the 13th Annual International Hemp Building Symposium hosted by the International Hemp Building Association. Going to be up there in Morton, Minnesota at the Lower Suit Indian community, and I am looking forward to being there. My name is Eric Herlock. I'm the senior digital editor here at Lancaster Farming Newspaper, the greatest agricultural newspaper in the world. Check us out online, lancasterfarming.com. Get a subscription. Sign up for our newsletter. Read the latest agricultural news. That's what we're here for. All right, that's it. Until next time, I will see you in the newspaper or in Minnesota, whichever comes first. All right, bye-bye.
This episode of The Hemp Show was written, recorded, and produced by Eric Herlock. Mixing and mastering by Justin Berger. Music by Eric Herlock. The Hemp Show is copyright 2025 by Lancaster Farming Newspaper, part of the Steinman Communications family.
Industrial hemp. Industrial hemp. Industrial hemp. Industrial hemp.